ask for a tip on top of all that. So you're paying $87 for a hamburger before you add the tip. That's kind of a separate issue.
Wait, what? You are all so detached from. Where are you getting the $87 hamburger, sir? Where is what is this? Do you get to meet the cow beforehand and then name it and then they slaughter it in front of you? Like, what are you talking about? $87? I know things are expensive. Like, how much could a banana cost, Michael? $12.
For the last few years on this show, we have been covering what I would call the pandemic of pointless tipping. Now, it used to be that tipping was expected only if you were at a sit-down restaurant or ordering a pizza for delivery. It's a simple time back then. Everybody knew the rules and expectations. You were asked to leave a tip only in very limited and specific circumstances, which meant that you could tip generously when those occasions arose. It was a win-win. The waiters and pizza delivery guys, they made out pretty well, and you had the opportunity to feel magnanimous.
They made out pretty well. Have you never had a normal job in your life? Have you never worked in a restaurant? I was a dishwasher. Yes, the fact that like I got the lowest, I was the bottom of the ladder in terms of the tip out at the end of the day, because first, obviously, the servers get the majority of their own tips, but then they would have to tip out the kitchen, and then the kitchen would have to tip out the fucking dishwasher. So yeah, it would work out to a couple extra dollars per shift, but holy fuck, that couple extra dollars above minimum wage does make a big difference when you're doing that kind of stuff. And one of the big reasons why tipping is even a thing is because they're not adequately paying their staff. In parts of the US, they actually get away with paying their staff less than they have to, because it's like, well, I mean, they're making up the minimum wage in the tips when you do the whole math.
Used to tip upwards of 25%, even more for most tipping situations. I was essentially a philanthropist back in those.
I looked it up and he hasn't. He's always been in some form of conservative talk stuff. You can just tell, right? You can tell. Like, I think even if you come, like, I'm never going to lie and say that I came from like a poor household and I'm a rags to riches story or something like that. No, I was never wanting. I come from privilege in that sense. My parents, I never worried about whether I was going to be homeless. I never worried where our next meal was coming from, stuff like that. But both my parents, and I think maybe this is because my dad comes from like a long line of like, you know, they had to flee the dictatorship under Franco and live very, very difficultly while they were doing that, and have to move to Chile, you know, stuff like that. They've always had this kind of like, no, you get out there and you get yourself a job, son. You know, like, oh, and once you're old enough, you get out there and you start learning what a day's hard work is. Like, he had me working construction for him for a really long time, which is fucking really hard ass stuff to do in the hot sun. And then like as soon as I could, yeah, I was working as a dishwasher. I was working in movie theaters. I was getting part-time jobs as a teenager. And yeah, I think it is good to learn what it's like to be in those work environments, for sure. I still think that like it would be better if I could have joined the union when I was working at a movie theater, but like you have to put in X amount of you know, time before they let you join it. It like doesn't mean that people in those situations shouldn't still be adequately compensated. And when it comes to tips, holy shit, of course, tip. Like, what's the problem? But no, now everything asks for tips. You know, I'm getting my Subway sandwich, sandwich artist, crafted a beautiful canvas before me, got the meatball sub with tuna, don't ask questions, and then he expected me to tip him. The end of all this artist.
Days. But then the dam started to crack a little bit, and suddenly places like coffee shops were putting out tip jars, and you know, why do I need to tip someone for pouring me a coffee? I could do that by myself. I'm more than happy to. Let me behind the counter. I'll handle it. Nobody ever bothered to justify the coffee shop tip jar, and we didn't have time to stop and think about it, because next thing you know, sit-down restaurants started offering to-go.
Not so fun fact, tipping originated in a post-slavery U.S. South as a way to keep the labor dynamics of slavery intact. White customers would be given power over the wages of black service workers. Really? I didn't even know that. I've learned something.
Options, but they still wanted
to make your own fucking coffee.
We used to tip the waiter for serving the food. Now we're being asked to tip the guy who simply hands a bag of food across the counter. And we got to tip the same for that, we're told. Tipping had already gotten out of hand, and we hadn't seen the worst of it yet, because one day...
You can do whatever you want, by the way. You're not forced to tip. You'll still be given the sandwich. Subway's still going to be like, here you go, even if you don't tip. They're not going to be like, whoa, was something wrong? Did you not like my artistry? What are you doing here, Matt?
They seemingly out of nowhere, all at once. Every store in America started using touch.
I know all the European and like Australian viewers right now are probably like, wait, what? How much do you all tip? And I was like, in Canada, it's about 20% now. You know, when I was growing up, it was 10%, then it was 15%. Like, it's increasing because, again, there's not adequate wages being paid to the people who work in a lot of these industries. And yeah, if you're working behind the counter at somewhere like Subway, at the end of your shift, if a couple extra people tip you a couple extra dollars, you don't have to. There can be 100 Matt Walshes, and then one person comes by and it's like, oh, here's an extra dollar, sure. Yeah, I have the means. I'm fine with that, right? But like the problem is that this whole system is dependent on, yes, people's generosity, people's charity in a lot of ways, people's ability to give a little bit more than they normally would. And yes, it makes everything very expensive, especially for like, you know, people who are just trying to get a $12.99 burger combo. And then it's like, well, that $12.99 is actually going to increase to about $18 or $20 depending on how much you're going to be giving at this moment, right?
Screen tablets at checkout, which makes it even easier to add a tipping option. And this was the moment.
Yeah, I'm dipping out of this combo. You don't tip here. The wage is $23 per hour, as it should be. As people should be adequately compensated. Then this, Matt, the problem would be solved. Here you go. Raise the minimum wage a bunch in the United States. There's a solution to your problem.
When the dam finally gave way. The simple, innocent days of tipping only on pizza night or date night were gone, and now everybody wants a tip.
Tipping is kind of demeaning. Yeah, that's the other aspect, is this entire thing where like there's a vilification of servers almost. Like, again, I feel it's people who've never worked in service industry, because if you've worked at a restaurant, you'll understand the dynamics will go down, and servers can have really shit days where there's drunks who are just like hitting on them the whole time and then trying to like lord tipping over them as something just like, hey baby, come on, what, you're not gonna laugh at my joke? You fucking, hey, I'll tip you an extra $20. What's going on here?
Every cashier at every store suddenly turns into a panhandler. Doesn't matter if you're at a bakery or a coffee shop or a fast food place or an airport or a supermarket or a gas station, a hardware store. They all want tips. They've all decided that inflation
tip lords
hasn't made life expensive enough as it is, apparently. And even as these industries intentionally make their already...
But how can you say all this shit and not realize the ... at the end of the sentence should be, yes, people are not being fairly compensated, and yes, it is more expensive than ever to buy a lot of the same things we used to buy. Inflation fucking hurts us all. So they might be asking, where they never used to before, hey, can you spare an extra $1? Yes, I've just poured you a coffee, I've made you this espresso or whatever it is that you do, you know, soy latte, whatever it is, and then afterwards them asking, hey, you don't have to, it's optional, but if you have the ability to, an extra $1 would go a long way to helping me.
Already too expensive goods and services, even more
this is capitalism.
The quality of the goods and services declined. The website retailcustomerexperience.com reported last year on a poll of over 96,000 consumers, which found that the quality of customer service has dipped dramatically. So if you've noticed a significant increase in the number of customer service workers who are totally disinterested and generally incompetent and often open...
Why do you think that is? It's hard fucking work. Man, so I've worked at 2 different movie theaters, and yeah, you get paid minimum wage, and they did this incentive where they used to tell us, because, you know, you're part of a family. I was working for a major fucking chain in Canada, famous players. You're told that you're part of a family, and then the whole thing comes down to, you gotta upsell. We need you to upsell. All of our profits come from us selling people popcorn. It's ridiculous how overpriced the popcorn is versus how expensive it is for us to produce it. That's where the money's coming from. It's not coming from the ticket sales, so you gotta upsell. So if someone asks, can I have a small popcorn and a water? You immediately counter that with, did you know for only 75 cents more, you could actually get the medium size, and it's going to give you twice as much popcorn, and it's really a good deal. And the majority of people, when asked, because A, it would be a little embarrassing to seem like a cheapskate in front of your date, and also just that instant kind of like, oh, I'm actually saving money by doing this, will probably make them upgrade what they're about to buy. The person who can have the highest sales average, because they used to play this game with us, the highest sales average at the end of the month gets a free DVD. Yeah, so work your asses off, no extra pay, but you could get a prize at the end of the month if you have a very high sales average. And 1 month I got that high sales average. Yes, I had over $25 per sale on average. I didn't get that from upselling. I actually just started pooling people's money to the side and then just ringing it all in at once. So I had this whole thing where it's like, people would like, yeah, I'll just get a water bottle. I'd be like, sure, man, sounds good, cool. Here you go, and then put that in a little pile, and then I'd ring it all in at once. And then, like, I wasn't stealing from them. I was just doing this little idea I had in my head. It was a scam, you see. And then I was like, fuck, I'm crushing this sales average, and that's the first and only job I've been fired from. They fired my ass. Like, of course, you're on camera the whole time. Obviously, there's cameras pointed at you. It's pretty easy to see Lance has this little bucket of money that's getting pooled in the corner there. And then, like, they actually did the thing where they called me into the manager's office, and then he's like, hi, Lance. So at this time, unfortunately, we don't believe that this arrangement is going to be working out for us anymore. We'd like to ask you to turn in your famous players' clothing and all that. And then there was a fucking security guy who was going to escort me out. I got a fucking escort. And I was like, wait. I was like, is this because of the pooling, the money pooling, like the whole sales average thing? And like they wouldn't give me it was so corporate. It's so boring. It's so corporate. Like getting fired from a job, just sitting there and just like, we at this time just believe that it would be in the best interests of both famous players and for yourself if we no longer had a working arrangement. We thank you very much for your time here, and I'd once again like to ask you to turn in your famous player's shirt. And then, hey, shout out to one of my best friends, because we were both working there at the time. He's like, as I walked out of the place, he's walking up like to me. He's like, "Hey, I thought we were working together." And I was like, "I just got fired." He's like, "You just got fired?" Well, fuck this shit. Just took off his famous player shirt. He's like, "Let's go drink." I was like, "You're cool." That's funny. And then he never quit. By the way, he never like formally quit. He just never showed up again. He had like 6 or 7 phone calls from them like, "Hi, oh, I'm not gonna say his name. I don't want to dox him, but like it's like, hey, let's just say Jimmy, right? Hey, Jimmy, just calling you. You missed a couple of your shifts. We're just wondering what's going on. If you're doing okay. Hey, Jimmy, us again. Yeah, you missed another one of your shifts. We're just wondering, you know, if you're okay, if you're fine. We like you know, like hell, fucking yeah."
Openly angry at you for walking into their
That's a good friend
to begin with.
We're still besties to this day.
Like, we've all noticed the same thing. And yet, at this precise moment, when service has never been worse,
the only good Jimmy. Yeah, we'll say the only good Jimmy
than we ever have for it. But at least if you're tipping a, you know, sullen and lazy customer service employee, you're still tipping an actual employee. You're tipping someone. You're tipping a human being. Increasingly, even that is starting to change. The Wall Street Journal reports this week, quote, "Tipping at self-checkout has customers crying emotional blackmail. Zero interaction with employees during a transaction no longer guarantees freedom from the moral quandary of how much to tip."
Okay, sorry. Is this a thing in America? This has never happened to me in Canada. I've never gone through a self-checkout and there was a prompt and was like, "Would you like to tip?" That's not happened to me yet. If that's the thing, you can say no and no one has to know. Is this really a moral quandary? It's like, oh, like hit no. It's super simple. Like, I solved the problem for you. This is no longer a problem.
To leave 20% at self-checkout machines at airports, stadiums, cookie shops, cafes across the country are rankling consumers.
I don't think that's real.
Inundated
Tip your machines, you unfeeling bastards.
Business owners say the automated queues can significantly increase gratuities and boost staff pay. But the unmanned prompts are leading more customers to question what exactly the tips are for. They're cutting labor costs by doing self-checkout, but what's the point of asking for a tip? And where's it going? Says Ishita Jamar, a senior at American University in Washington, D.C.
These all seem like problems you should be having with corporations. These all seem like problems you should be having with capitalism.
Tip queues at restaurants she frequents. Tipping researchers, that's a job apparently, tipping researchers, and labor advocates say that so-called...
Yeah, is this Maddie's first capitalism, right?
To put the onus for employee pay onto consumers.
I live in Cali, I've never seen this. Hey, I was just in Maryland. I didn't see this anywhere.
Job well done. Well, who did the job at a self-checkout machine? Me?
Okay, Matt, then tip yourself. Virtue signal. Walk up there and at the very end of it, just make sure everyone knows. Like, "Oh, excuse me, everyone. Excuse me. I just performed a service and I am tipping myself $1 because I'm a big boy and this is a real problem."
If anyone should be tipped after I use...
Honestly, the level of fucking, like, right-wingers want to fucking face persecution so bad. They make up the most ridiculous problems. Just on every single time you watch one of these videos, it's just like, oh, the self-checkout machines demanding chips or tips. How will we ever stop this? What can be done? What can be done to lift the boot from our faces?
Self-checkout, it should be me. And I really should get a tip because I'm very efficient.
Chips, yeah.
On the self-checkout.
Chips too.
Okay, unlike a lot of people.
Tip your server's chips.
They bag each thing slowly and individually and all that. I speed through that thing. It's one of my best skills. And I've already taken on the role of the employee when I'm at the self-checkout.
How is Maryland compared to the utopia of Flatbush? Well, I just want to be clear. I don't want to say that there isn't, like, obviously, probably crime or other stuff that goes on in Flatbush. I'm just saying, like, the very idea of how you get, like, the vilification of, say, like, you know, well, this is a poor neighborhood and it happens to be predominantly black and there's a lot of policing that goes on there. I was like, well, there was a fuck ton of policing and everything. Yeah, it's just like, I just love that I have a lived experience where whenever they say, like, well, would you live there? Would you live in? And I was like, I did. It's like, yes, I was the only white person until the tourist season, you know, starts bringing in tons more white people who end up living in that area because it's way cheaper to get Airbnbs in that area than it is other parts of New York. So yeah, I lived there. I didn't feel, it was never dangerous. I didn't feel othered. I was never treated with a white, anti-white racism. I went to the barber shop. I've had my hair cut by a black barber. He put the line, you know, that line where your hair parts. He did that line there. there, and then he was like taking a whole bunch of video footage of me, and they were taking photos of me and everything like that. And it was not an awkward experience at all. It was darling. We had amazing conversations. It lived up to the hype. Okay, I say this as a white person who has seen that only in the movies and stuff like that. It lived up to the hype. It was a very fun, pleasant experience. And so no, I did not feel unsafe. I did not feel that like at any given time they were going to come after the white person. Oh, there's a white person. Yes, we have to attack them.
Checkout machine. I'm scanning and bagging my own items.
Do you have photos of the haircut? I'll look it up, and maybe that can be a
President Trump recently
sub-goal.
issued a warning from his Mar-a-Lago home. Quote, if I could do a Trump impression here, I would do it, but I can't. So, our currency is crashing and will soon no longer be the world's standard.
My boy got an edge up. Is that what it's called? It's called an edge up? I didn't know. But I told him at the time, he was like, I was like, oh, I want it short and kind of faded around the sides. And then like, you can just leave it long enough in the top to like be able to like, you know, comb over. And then he was like, I have an idea if you don't mind. Like we could, you know, do this line along the side there. I didn't know that's what it was called though. Cool.
Will be our greatest defeat, frankly, in 200 years. There are 3 reasons the central banks are dumping the U.S. dollar: inflation, deficit spending, and our insurmountable national debt. The fact is, there is one asset that has withstood famine, wars, political and economic upheaval, dating all the way back to biblical times, and that is gold. I've bought gold from Birch Gold in preparation for uncertain.
I couldn't. Normally, so with Ben Shapiro, you know, he's leading into an ad, but this just sounds exactly like the same kind of shit that he always talks about. So like, oh yeah, you're doing a pitch
As with
right now.
most things in our culture, the solution is to get back to the basics, to return to tradition. The only people who should be asking for a tip are waiters and fast food delivery people. Even though the food delivery apps already charge service fees.
Wait, so not cabs? Not taxi drivers? Tips like are make or break in that industry. Like you can make half decent money to you know, support a family if you're adequately tipped as a cab driver.
And delivery fees.
Yeah, or the person who cuts your hair. You don't tip your barber? Are you fucking serious?
And delivery service fees and service delivery fees. And then,
man, like whoever Matt Walsh's barber is, you should start like, you know, writing words in the back of his head. just you know, little secret messages for only people who walk behind him to see.
they ask for a tip on top of all that. So you're paying $87 for a hamburger before you add the tip. That's kind of a separate issue.
Wait, what? You are all so detached from. Where are you getting the $87 hamburger, sir? Where is what is this fucking? Do you get to meet the cow beforehand and then name it and then they slaughter it in front of you? Like, what are you fucking talking about? $87. I know things are fucking expensive. Like, how much could a banana cost, Michael? $12.
Waiters and delivery people, still, they can ask.
Oh, it's the Mr. Beast burger.
A few other service jobs that have been grandfathered in, valets, coat checks, etc. Everyone else can make do with the wage that they're already being paid. You're already getting paid to do your job. That's why if you're at the checkout, your paycheck is for this right here, this interaction where I'm giving you something, you're scanning it, you're taking the card. Like, that's what that's for. That's what your paycheck is for. It's for that. And that's how it used to be, and it's how it should be again.
Oh, that's how it used to be. The good old days. The good old days.
But it's up to the customers to make that happen. The customers have.
No, it's up to the companies. What? They are not being fairly, adequately paid. That's why they depend on tips. It's a large part of this.
Have to say no. See, this is the other element.
Like, honestly, increase the minimum wage and then start to standardizing paying people who work for you a living wage. If you work, and it's hard fucking work to be in the service industry. If you work in the service industry, you should be paid. You shouldn't have to get second jobs or become a fucking delivery person by night just to be able to make ends meet.
In the perfect storm that has led to this tipping pandemic, most people in our culture, they don't know how to say no. They were never told no as kids. They never tell their own kids no. They never tell anyone no. They tolerate everything. They accept everything. And they leave a tip whenever the prompt comes up because they don't want to say no in that context either. We have to recapture the long-lost art of saying no. And as much as I complain about the proliferation of tipping, I'm really complaining on behalf of all of those people who are suckered into it, because it's not actually a problem for me personally. I have no trouble saying no.
Oh my God, you're such a Karen. You know he makes a big deal out of it. Probably one of those people who's like, so I'm tipping on the tax because I don't believe in the government and taxation. So I'm only tipping on the amount before the government's hands get involved. Yeah.
I will hit the no tip option on the checkout prompt without feeling the slightest tinge of guilt. Okay.
But you had to make it into a video. Had to make sure everyone knows how you feel about this. Yeah. A non-problem, as in your own words. And I agree. Yeah, if I was at a checkout counter and it was a self-checkout, I was like, would you like to tip? I would be like, no, I would not. And then we go on. We go about our day.
Even if it's one of those things where they really ramp up the emotional blackmail, but by asking you, sometimes if you're in maybe say a drive-through line, and they'll say, oh, did you want to add the tip here? like, probably 90% of people, especially then, will say, oh yeah, sure, I'll do. I have no problem saying, oh no, I don't. Thank you for the opportunity. I don't. I'll just pay. I'll pay the actual amount that's on the receipt, and that's it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to pay more, but I'd rather pay less, actually. I'm not stealing the goods that I purchased. I've already paid for them. I don't feel morally compelled to voluntarily pay more than what they cost, because that's what the tip prompt is really asking. Here's your total. Would you like to make it more expensive? No, I would not like that. No, thank you. That's all. That's all we need to say. And saying no to the tip prompts is just the start. It's good practice for all the other no's we should be saying. Emotional blackmail is a common tactic in our society, and it's used to advance all sorts of insidious agendas. The over-tipping agenda is not the most insidious, but it's not the least either. And the solution is the same, either way. Just say no. And to those asking for undeserved tips, we can also say, you're canceled. And that'll do it for the show. This portion of the show is move over to Members Block. You become
You fucking snowflakes. Tucker moves to Twitter. Wow, this is not a great thumbnail, Matt. Mind you, I mean, it's near impossible for you to take a great thumbnail. So
Tucker Carlson was fired from Fox 2 weeks ago now, and there's been a lot of speculation about what Tucker will do now that he's been fired. We now have an answer. Let's listen.
Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others.
That's huge, and I have to say, I'm feeling pretty good about our decision to bring our show to Twitter a couple weeks ago. If you want to, again, drive the conversation.
He lied, by the way. He believes in nothing. He was like, oh, I got demonetized by YouTube. I will no longer support these big tech companies that are looking to censor us and censor my bigotry. We are no longer going to be on YouTube. I say as I'm playing videos of him on YouTube because he didn't do shit all. And yeah, all he's doing is he's also uploading them to Twitter. And like, cool.
And the news cycle, Twitter does that a lot more than YouTube does. Which is why on YouTube, you can have YouTube stars who have tens of millions of subscribers, but outside of YouTube, no one's even heard of them. If you become prominent on Twitter, then you're going to be in the kind of national conversation. So it makes
¿Por qué no los dos?
sense strategically. And now that that Twitter is run by the richest guy in the world, who also happens to be an advocate.
That's pretty wild he says something like that, considering like he's probably most famous on Twitter for just defending pedophiles. Like I would say to a normie, it's like, hey, what do you know about Matt Walsh? Is he the guy who defends pedophiles? Yeah, he's the guy who defends pedophiles. He really loves defending pedophiles. It's probably what he's most known for on Twitter is, again, pedophile defending.
Free speech. It makes sense to make this move.
Oh, God.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.